roll right now.
Yo, Mike Nassan, chupwa. Do you have
Okay, welcome back. We're here with Andrea Smith. Andie and I have known each other for quite some time now.
How long? 20,
I started
15? Almost 10 years.
Yeah, almost 10 years. Yeah, and we go through these
Wow.
of
That's crazy. 10 years.
for a couple years to talking maybe once a month to this past month talking probably 3 or 4 times. But we
Sorry, my cat got in.
Off, right?
No, yeah. I think, we've gone through a lot of ebbs and flows. I think there's times that I've called you about sports. There's times that I've called you about relationships. I think I've talked to you. We've talked more about life in the last, more than when you coached me.
Yeah.
I think, which was, I look back and I'm like, that was only, cause you didn't start right away in the fall. So we probably only knew each other for 6 months.
Yeah. Cause I started late cause I was,
Yeah.
I was at training. So I think I started late into the fall and you were a JUCO transfer.
Yeah, I transferred in. I had no friends. It was awesome.
It didn't take you that long to make friends. I feel like
no, it didn't, but it was hard because I remember sitting in the meeting and I was the only transfer.
Okay.
And we're sitting in the meeting and I chose to sit at the very back table because I wanted to survey the room to see who I'd get along with. Yeah. And I remember seeing Ains and Carly.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to be friends with them. And then I kind of kept to myself and hung out with the freshmen. And then it took me I'll never forget the first time they invited me over to their house. And I was like, yes, I finally have friends. And it took 3 months. But anyways, we can get into that. I've told Ainsley, oh my God. Sorry. The first time I ever saw Ainsley, too, the first time I ever talked to her, she came into practice with a Duke shirt on, and I'm a Duke fan. And Ains. And I looked at her and I was like, oh yeah, Duke, go Duke. And she didn't know who it was. She goes, yeah, and kept walking. And I was like, okay.
Did she was just wearing the shirt? Or was she was she just wearing the shirt or was she
Yes. No, she was wearing the shirt and she's a fan. We ended up down the road. We ended up going to a Duke game together at Notre Dame. After, when did we do that? I can't remember. But yeah, so that was my journey there. But anyway, sorry, keep going. We're gonna run into a lot of this.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so as we've kind of established, I coached Andie in college for a year, and after you graduated UD, you were a college coach yourself and transitioned to softball operations and a travel coach, and we'll kind of get into the details of that. But I feel like one thing that we both kind of are very passionate about is JUCOs. We were both JUCO kids, and it was funny. I feel like that was one reason that maybe we really resonated was because I had teammates that were junior college players as well. Well, I should say one, and then another one of my roommates, and we would essentially say we were the JUCO best friends, right? And Carly would write poems about how great JUCO was, on our trip.
It's the best.
But what would you say? I feel like there's some common misconceptions there,
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, from a larger scope, I feel like people think that JUCO sucks.
Yeah.
That the talent level's not there. And then I call it an excuse. They'll say, I don't want to have to worry about transferring to a 4-year. And I always have to tell kids, I'm like, one, if you go to, especially an established JUCO, now don't get me wrong, there's some JUCOs that are out in the middle of nowhere that, you probably go there for 2 years because you're like, I'll see how it goes, or it just depends. But there's some JUCOs, and I mean, I can name them: Indian Hills, Kirkwood, DMAC. Who am I missing? I mean, even like Southeastern for baseball, where I went.
Lakeland.
There, yeah, Lakeland. There's so many, especially in the Midwest. There's a lot more. Um, they'll go and beat up on D1 schools. I mean, I remember watching DMAC run roll Iowa and Iowa State. Like, so it's there's so many misconceptions about that, and I think for me, and we can probably touch on this through like the recruiting journey as well, but my JUCO was in my hometown. I didn't know what I wanted to major in. My high school coach was also the JUCO assistant coach, so that kind of helped. But I came from a really good high school program. We went to state, and I didn't understand the recruiting journey at all. I had no one to help me. And I went on a visit there, and I think I had my mind set on it even before they offered me. And I remember leaving, and my dad goes, "Well, what do you think?" And I'm like, I'll probably go here." He goes, "You're not gonna have to pay anything. Like, they offered you a full." And I was like, "Oh shit, okay, yeah, I'll go here."
Yeah.
And I knew that the playing opportunities like were there. It was a roster of, now granted it's different, but it was a roster of 14.
Yeah.
And I knew I was gonna get a lot of playing time. That's all I wanted to do was play softball. I wasn't done. Like, I knew that. I knew going into college I wanted to play softball. I always knew that. Didn't know my major, didn't understand how college works, didn't understand what a AA was, didn't understand what a bachelor's degree was, didn't understand what a master's was. Like, that's all I wanted to do. Um, and yeah, and what was funny enough, no one that I played in my class, except two of us, ended up going and play softball. But I was the only one that stayed home and played. So yeah, it was the best 2 years of my life. It was amazing.
It's funny you say that because I feel like the common misconceptions come from like historical issue. I say historically, that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't what we did. Like that,
Right.
that was not what we did. Now you look at like the recruiting demographic, and like I've talked to schools that are literally telling kids, "Hey, sorry, we're gonna go with not
Yeah.
not even necessarily a JUCO transfer, but
Yeah.
things that people are doing are mind blowing to me." For example, I've coached a couple kids when they were 10 now, or what, their fifth year, they had a COVID eligibility. Instead of staying at the school that they were at, playing 4 years, they transferred for 1 year
1 year.
to a
Yeah.
different school. Like
Yeah.
we're talking like Illinois to Louisiana or Illinois to Florida.
Yeah.
And people are
Yeah.
wondering why they're having a hard time getting recruited is because they're taking on veteran players who
Yes.
sync up rosters, right? But now, like I feel like before the JUCO was for a lot of, I would say in my class it was for either A, kids that knew they were going to a substantial JUCO and they knew that they were going to get somewhere after, or B, like we didn't know what we were doing, so we're like, we'll just,
Yeah.
I just want to play, and then I'll figure it out later, right?
That's
Not like
exactly
that.
what happened.
I feel like it's not like
Yeah.
kids that are going to JUCO
No.
getting to JUCOs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. And that's something too, is like, and you can kind of blame this on social media. I mean, my algorithm just from coaching is all these commits, right? And so you think about girls that we coach that are 16, 17, 18. Oh my God, so and so's going to Michigan. And they don't even know this girl, right? It's random kids from all over the United States that are committing, and it's coming up on your algorithm, right? And so they're like, oh, like I can go there. I'm like, I should. That's D1 or bust. And I'm like, you guys, like there's other avenues. I feel like I shouldn't talk about this now because we could segue off to this
Yeah, no
forever.
worries. Okay,
Um, um,
But what about, so, like, when you're talking about the D1 or bust mentality, what about D3? Like, people have this
Right.
same thing,
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
People have this common misconception about, "I'll go anywhere but D3." Um,
Yeah.
I loved coaching.
Stupid.
I played D3 for a year.
Yeah. Yeah. I played it, I coached it. Um, but it's every and we can go on about this. I feel okay. I have to stay on track. I need to stay on track. Okay. I have to. I have to. This is not good. Coach, this is bad. Okay. So let me say, do you edit any of this?
I mean, no, it's raw content. Unless
Okay. All right, cool.
unless
Let
something's
me Okay, let me go back to JUCO and let's go through that and then we can because I don't want to lose track of my thoughts about JUCO yet.
okay, no worries.
Okay. So, another thing about JUCO, and I don't know if you had this experience.
Yeah.
We were the only people on campus that stayed on campus.
I lived off campus. Actually, they didn't provide
Okay. Oh shit. See, so that's the thing. Like that's the thing too. Like I have a girl, Brian, she's going to Brian Stratton.
Okay.
And she is e- the perfect example of a JUCO athlete. Not very good at school, which is fine. I wasn't either.
Yep.
I was like sub 3.0 because I was lazy and I had missing assignments, and that was why I got grounded. Um, and uh, hard to follow tasks. She needs organization. She needs all these things, and it is sport based. Like you talk about like softball being a job. JUCO, I would say JUCO and D1 can go hand in hand.
There's no
It's
rules.
soft. There's no rules. People don't understand that. They're like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, you have a bad game? Okay, let's get off the bus at 5 a.m. Oh, by the way, we're gonna go run."
Mhm.
There's no governing body to say like
Yeah.
you're hurting your kids, and I even coached JUCO too, and even in that moment, that was my first year coaching. I'm 22 and I'm coaching 18 to 20-year-olds, mind you, that I've played with or against in the area. And looking back, I'm just like, there's no regulation whatsoever at all. So, but what I loved about JUCO is that if you love softball or you're questioning if you love softball, you find out
Mhm.
real quick.
Yeah, because,
Like, and
well, it could go either way though, because and like this isn't to knock on the JUCO coach that I had, but like the intensity, the reason I left was because the intensity wasn't there, right? Like I was like,
right. Yeah, you wanted more.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I had peers that were going to JUCOs that were exactly what you're saying, like playing at JUCO D1s where they were like putting their phone in a basket before they would go play, or they,
Yeah.
oh, you had a bad game, we can make the bus wait. We'll run,
Yep.
right? And I'm not saying that I mean, obviously, like I would say like just based on what I know, like the NJCAA has kind of like really kind of tried to manipulate their governing to see it not be such a hard transition from JUCO
Yeah.
to NCAA or NII, which is a whole other beast. But
Yes.
I
Yes.
think
Yes.
I think
Yes.
ultimately, like I think it's a really good. I agree to your point. I think it's a really good starting point to figure out like, do I even want to do this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, or if you love it and you want playing time and you want those small classes. That's what I wanted. I wanted small classes. My GPA went through the roof, which allowed me to get more money when I transferred to a 4-year for academics. Um the camaraderie that you have with people that are only a year apart from you. I got to play with Venezuelan Olympic players
Yeah.
that were just freaking insane. They called me La Leche because I got so white in the winter. And it just we got to play some amazing JUCOs, like so freaking good. And people think that it's like, oh, they're not that like JUCO's not that good. I'm like, dude, like JUCO made me. Like I remember getting in trouble and we were in the gym and running and I'm just thinking, and we practiced in a gym,
Yep, same.
Softies. Yeah, it was softies and which sucked, but it's just like looking back, I'm just like, I would never change anything that I did. We won a conference championship my sophomore year as a 3 seed. And you know, we did so many things that were really hard together. And even till this day, like I'll see memories of that team specifically pop up and I'm just like, I love them. Like you know, we went through so much stuff together and I think it really shaped me because I think it helped me set up into when I transferred to UD. Again, I'm not an organized person. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to study sport management because I'm like, all I know is softball. I enjoy, I mean, I grew up watching ESPN and that's all I really watched. Also because it didn't have any scary commercials, so I didn't have nightmares before bed. And 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 I was like, okay, sport management. I was thinking about, you know, trying to walk on at like Western Illinois or something like that. But again, I didn't understand the process of that. I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
And and I saw UD, one of my maid of honor, she's like, "Hey, I'm going here. They have sport management. Campus is great." Da 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 da. Went on a visit, met Katani, met Wendy. I was like, "Okay, I'll go here. Small classes, what I wanted. Great facilities. Holy shit.
Facilities, yeah.
Yeah, amazing facility. Like the stupid nice
I
facilities.
would say academic and athletic, both academic and athletic.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, and I think, you know, you always have that imposter syndrome, I think, being a transfer, because you're like trying to size yourself up with people that have been there 4 years, right? So and I felt it. Like I walk into practice and I go to the outfield and there's probably, I don't know, 8 outfielders.
And we had almost 30 on the roster that year, I
Did
think.
we?
It
I
was
kind of blacked out. I don't know.
it was close to 30 because I remember it was a no cut program. Most D3s are.
Yeah, right. And that's something other kids don't understand too. And I've had that conversation with girls that are getting recruited. I'm like, hey, sometimes it comes down from the president that you have to hold X amount on a
Right.
roster. So
Yep.
sorry, keep going.
No, most of the kids they figured out early in the fall, even when we were just holding captains practices, that it wasn't fair,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
hypothetically speaking, you start out with, I don't know, 30 kids and you end up with 25, which to be honest, like when it was just obviously me and Wendy, like that's still a lot for 30 people. Thank God we had the facilities that we did. Like, could you imagine practicing in the gym with 30 kids?
no,
That I mean
not
that
even the rec. Like even the rec when we had practice, which is huge, is like what, 5 courts, 6 courts. Um, that was still chaos because everyone's running around on the track. You got what are those non-athletic regular people, right?
yeah.
They're running around.
Yeah. But
And
then where yeah.
yeah. So no, I agree. Wow, we had that many.
Yeah, there was quite a few because I mean just outfielders alone. There was a huge it was a huge
Yeah.
freshman class. I think there was like
Oh, you know what? Yeah.
12
Now that you say that.
in the freshman class.
Yeah, you're right because that was like Courtney and yeah. Yep. Yep, that makes sense. Because yeah, when I came in, because all the intro meetings that I had to go to, I was the only junior with a bunch of freshmen.
Yeah.
And yeah, that makes sense. All right.
What about
Yeah.
what about your experience at D3? I mean, I know what mine looked like, but um
I so the hardest transition for me was you go from JUCO, which is 7 days a week softball, to I don't even think we had 30 contact days yet at D3. We were only allowed 2 weeks with you.
2 weeks in the fall, yeah, and then basically everything else was
Was
on.
captain ran. Yeah, that was really hard for me. And because I am not a self-motivated person. I'm a team-motivated person.
Yeah.
I like to be coached. So when we're doing fall and I'm like, "Oh yeah, like this is great." Like I was navigating like where I fit in with the team because like I didn't know the culture. I didn't know like how we play. Like are we pitching based? Are we defense based? Like what is our strength? And then I'm also like, am I a starter? And I'll never forget the first fly ball that I took in center field, I dropped.
I remember that.
And I was like, embarrassing.
I was like, who is this kid?
Yeah, I was so
Where did she
embarrassed.
come
But
from?
then, yeah, and then I remember, I want to say the following play, I got put in right field. Someone overthrew first base. I grabbed the ball because the runner was going two, and I got the backup and I threw out at second. And I was like, I redeemed myself. I redeemed myself. I'll never forget that. I'm sitting there, I'm camped under it, and I was like, I was so embarrassed. I was just like, I am not gonna play. I'm not gonna play. I'm not good. I was literally like, I'm not good at softball. I am not good.
It was a nerd. Large roster.
I don't. Yeah, honestly, I was like, holy shit, like, where am I gonna fit in here? But I guess I was thinking about asking you this. I want to know, and I want to know what your impression of me was as a player.
So it was weird because I feel like a lot of I don't want to call them barriers, right? Or personality barriers, or your inability to open yourself up, or the mindset that you had was because of your environment, right? You were just uncomfortable in your environment. Right? So like,
Yeah.
So I feel like, and I feel like I kind of understood that because I had been at a JUCO, like I had come in. I mean, shoot, I transferred from a JUCO mid-season to a D3 and showed up.
Yeah.
Thank God Heather Bruder allowed me to do that. Mid-season, she was like, "Hey, rock on, like earn a spot, right? Anything." So I knew it was like kind of like be outcast, and I felt like that was a lot of like who you were in the beginning, but then as you later transition, even just I was thinking about I want to get you about your every time you did a home run, you would fly. Right?
Every time I had one home run, and it was a grand slam.
Every time.
And I feel like I had two collegiate home runs, and that was my first ever home run, and it was a grand slam. And you know what? I deserve that.
You did this, and then I think once you crossed home, you were like this to your dad.
Yeah, my dad was there. Yeah, I have a big printout. That's probably one of my highlights of my career for sure. And it was against Loris too.
Which was a great, which is always like a huge competitor as far as like rivalry goes. But I think like to answer your question, I feel like I saw who you were at the end, right? Like I feel like kind of like I don't want to say pigeonholed yourself, but you secluded yourself because you were unsure of your environment. And I feel like that's a very, very common characteristic of transfers. Cool thing is now is social media is so prominent. Like now, if they find out you're transferring, kids are like, "Hey, what's up?" Blah blah blah. We didn't have
right.
That was a huge thing. So I feel like that kind of eliminates the barrier. But I thought you were very confident, which I think female athletes need. Like people need surrounded by those who celebrate themselves, but I say celebrate themselves in a positive way that kind of like it disseminates throughout the team, right? But and you knew how to get people motivated, and I think towards the like once you started to find your groove, like whether you were a transfer or not, people like looked to you and people listened because you were passionate, two, you're confident, and even when you had a bad game, it was not like you weren't like all about Andie. You were like, okay, what am I going to do to supplement the point, right? Earlier, you're like, that ball. And then I went over playing right field and I threw that. What am I going to do to capitalize? If I'm having bad defense, on offense, right?
Yeah.
For that. And I feel like that's like really something that's just missed in athletics alone, you know?
Yeah. No, and thank you for saying that. Because I've never like I've never asked a coach like I know, and it's funny now that you say that because I remember having my fall meeting with you and Whip, and now that you say that, I think Whip said to me like, are you okay? Are you figuring stuff out? And I remember you said to me, and you said like, oh, like you've been hesitant. And I remember looking at you guys, I'm like, you haven't seen what I can do yet because I'm not comfortable. But I was like, you haven't seen the
Right.
best version of me yet. And I think that was the first time I really talked out loud of like how I feel about my abilities of like what I could do with like for the team.
Right.
That was the best year I ever played, hands down.
I think, yeah, you seemed authentically like you. You know what I mean? I mean, I saw you play, I think, once after I went to Cornell that following year.
Yeah.
But you were, you know, like still the same Andie. But yeah, I think we had seniors, like good leadership graduate.
Mm-hmm.
Was I'm trying to remember Megan, Les, Kelly Gerace.
Oh no, Megan was in my grade.
Oh, you're
but
right.
She didn't play. So we had Kelly, Amanda, Hannah.
Yeah.
We had a very heavy senior pitching class. Carly Grunder.
Just all good, solid leadership.
Oh yeah, all like starters too. Like yeah, and so like they left, and I think like captains were me, G, and Tori. And yeah, that was tough. Actually, I tell this story. I have a regret from that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell my girls this. I tried to stretch a triple.
Okay.
And I got out trying to stretch it. However, Dennis has a picture that I was safe. And I got up and I threw my helmet in the dugout in front of Gianna. And she looked at me, she goes, "We don't do that." And I was like I like how I was taught to play the game was like to respect it. And even when I was playing and I'm 22 years old, if I ever disrespected a coach or I didn't hustle out to my position, my dad would let me know. He's like, I'll pull you off that field myself.
Yeah.
You won't play on my decision. And I could have gone 4 for 4 with 4 home runs, but if I didn't hustle or if I didn't have eye contact or if I didn't do any of those things that like respected the game, I heard about it.
Yeah.
Always.
You know,
and
but what about, did you feel like though, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but did you feel like when Gianna said that, like, I didn't feel like the environment that Coach created, and I would say like the captains created, was like, hey, we're all going to be really open with each other. And so long as the intent is good, we're going to hold each other accountable. Which
for sure.
They did a really great job of.
Yeah, and like that's the thing too. This is not every person's like this. I'm so happy she said something. Like I knew it was wrong as soon as I did it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Gianna, who's one of my really good friends on the team, we hang out all the time, and she says that to me, and I'm like, and that's on me, and I'm sorry, and I love you, and I love this game, and I love this team, and I shouldn't have done that. And that was such a selfish reaction to me trying to stretch a triple in a game that we probably were kicking your guys' ass anyway. But yeah,
I do, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because randomly I've coached. I mean, I would say like regardless to whether or not as a coach the environment you welcome, there's still going to be some one-offs, right? Like,
sure.
Realistically, even some of your best players, you'll find you're like, wait, whoa, what was that, right? But I feel like oftentimes, and I could be wrong in some aspects, but oftentimes people are like you were saying, Gianna was like your friend, right? So sometimes either it could go two ways. maybe Gianna doesn't say anything to you because she doesn't want to ruin your friendship. She's afraid how you're going to receive it, right?
Yes.
Or
I want to be the bitch.
right?
Yeah.
Or it goes the opposite way where she feels more comfortable telling you that because you guys are friends. Now look at like a third party perspective. Like I've had, meetings with athletes who are concerned about doing the right thing, right? They're like, how do I do the right thing without being like coach's pet, right? Or how do I do it without saying like, like my girlfriend jokes around with me. She's like, Ashley, you're such a rule follower, right? Like, and I am.
Yeah.
I'm a rule follower. Like,
but also your background too, like in the army and shit, like you like structure, like you like, it's gotten you here.
Right.
Why change?
Yeah. No, absolutely. But I would even say my upbringing made me that way, right?
True. Yeah.
Like when my parents, when my parents got divorced, like, there were times where, like I was just trying to like figure myself out. Like if I'm jumping in a lake full of leeches with the neighbor kid down the street, even though dad didn't want me to, rock on, right? But like when we're talking about, like I never think about doing anything without realizing, okay, what short-term decision am I going to make with that's going to have a long-term ramification, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like kids do that specifically because or they don't think that way anymore because they're afraid of what other people are going to think, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And no, I totally agree with that.
Like raw relationships, like if I had come up to you as now not your coach, but like as a friend and been like, Andie, that was really messed up what you did, you'd be like, how can we talk about it? Some people be like, I can't believe that she said that, right?
Yeah, they had the audacity to say, oh yeah, no, I totally get it. And I will say, like, within my coaching experience, and I've said this, is like it's a rarity to find kids that are naturally like that. And the kids that are naturally like that make it.
Yep, absolutely.
Like if they want to go D1, they're gonna, like, that's the thing. Like talent. If you have an upside and you work hard and you put in that extra time, you'll make, like, you'll hit a ceiling, right, eventually. But if you have that mentality and you're coachable and you're accountable and you can rationalize and not get offended, and like one of my favorite quotes, one of my coaches, my JUCO coach and high school coach, he was a screamer. And when we were in high school, you were like, oh, you want to play for Larry, you want to play varsity for Larry. So when you're a freshman in JV and you're in you're practicing on the outfield and he's running his varsity practice and he's screaming, right? But everyone was so scared of him, but he was so respected. Like he's a Iowa Hall of Fame coach. And I ended up playing for him, and he yelled at me one time, and I kind of teared up because I was like, damn, like I was trying, and he said to me, don't focus on how it's being said. Focus on what's being said.
Super smart.
And I'm like, okay. And ever since I was 16 years old, I still say that to my girls that I've coached from every single division, travel ball, you name it. I don't know about you. Have you seen me coach? I black out sometimes.
Yeah, you coach in my old area, but
right. So, what's that?
I said I've heard about you. That's all good things. Like no one's ever.
Well, so I get fired up, and sometimes I black out. Like it just happens. Like I go on a tangent. I'm fired up. I'm passionate, and I black out. And sometimes, girls look at me. The ones that know me get it, and the ones that are new to me kind of like. I'm like, listen, whatever you just heard. If I said pull your head out of your ass, try to translate that, and think, did I show up my best today? Was I focused? And yeah, and I think that when kids can get that and they can translate, like, for example, like one of the girls, I have a girl that's at UW Green Bay, mid-major Division I, and the head coach called me because she wants to recruit her. And she goes, so tell me a little bit about her. And I was like, great kid, super coachable, comes from a great family. Yes, coach this, whatever, like whatever she needs, any questions she's so comfortable with. She goes, you know why I like her? Like, why? She goes, I watched you rip her and in the middle of a game. And she turned around and she was like, okay, coach. And then went out and made like a spectacular play. And I was like, okay. but and like that's the thing is you know, when you find kids that can do that, that's what the, you know, you look at Division I softball now, like that top 1% of the top 25 teams, they're filled with them. That's all they have. Now, I can get into like my view on coaching experience, and like when I was at Syracuse, like, yeah, it's Division I, but there's still a gap between Florida State and the ACC and Syracuse. And the year I was there, Florida State won the national championship.
Right.
And, you know, these girls that are playing, which were so talented, but there's still that gap of coachability in a way, and culture. Now, granted, like that could also stem from like the coaching staff, which, you know, and I was a volunteer assistant. Like but I had the outfielders. I coached first base. Like I had an impact, and I kind of look back and I'm just like, there was still a huge gap between, you know, and then I go back to kids being like D1 or bust, and I'm like, not all D1s are the same.
Yeah.
You see Kocha in Florida State, you see Patty Gasso on TV, Heather Tarr, my favorite, I love her, I have a huge crush on her. And shout out the plug, Lance Glasso, love you, man. And there's like, that's what kids don't understand too, is like there is a huge gap there, and I think it just comes down to being coachable. Like I remember we had a camp at Syracuse, and there was a girl coming in. She was a senior. We were recruiting her. She was an outfielder, and top 25 outfielder, allegedly. And she was the biggest brat. And I remember telling the coach, I'm like, you want her? Like, yeah, she's fast. Yeah, she can track down a ball. But she was a brat. And I don't know if it's because, you know, she came in, maybe that comes off when she's nervous.
Yeah.
She ended up, when I left, she was a freshman. She only lasted a semester and left.
You know, I was just talking to a colleague about that, because obviously, like, on the full-time side, I spent a lot of time just, I don't want to say bullshitting, not bullshit, it's talking with athletes, betting athletes.
Yeah.
And I spoke to one kid who was telling me her story. I'll keep it disclosed. We'll just keep it at that. But tell me her story. Super unfortunate story. And she kept saying yes to him. And I was like, I was so hopeful, right? Like, I was so hopeful of like the generation, because this kid doesn't know me from Adam. She doesn't give me any respect. I mean, really, the things that she knows about me are on my social media page and what she can do. But she respects her adults. Right? She knows how to identify that. And where I think that's super important is even I had an athlete on my former select team. Yes, coach. Yes, coach. Yes, coach. Right. Also, one of my teammates from the South, from Texas, every single time that my coach would talk, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, coach. And I'm not saying that that's like, I don't want to say that that's welcome in every environment. Some coaches don't want that, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, some are like, don't call me that. Yeah.
But I also think the difference between yes and yeah, huge respect factor. The difference between like body language, like you're speaking or you're demonstrating something, you know, like it's very easy. It could be very easy for a coach to show up and say, all right, especially at a D1 level, right? Where kids, I say, and FSU, Washington, etc. And you've seen UW hold a clinic and play, and I've seen UW hold a clinic and play. But it's very easy. Heather Tar could be like, you know what? You guys all know what you're doing. I have famous assistants. Like, goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, yeah.
But like, she is in the nitty gritty of the most finite things walking around. And that to me, like, I don't want to say like, that's not really, I don't want to say it's in the job description, right? Especially at that level, hire people below you in order to get back and you just manage, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like maybe that's overlooked when kids are like, this coach is constantly correcting me or she's giving me things. And it's like, dude, like, let me go throw you in front of, you know, XYZ travel team or XYZ. And, you know, like we had a rule, the travel team that I coached before, no one sits on the bench and no one sits on a bucket.
Same, yeah.
We sit on buckets. We stood the whole game.
Yeah, whole game, yeah.
Like, and that's not downgrading anybody that chooses to sit on a bucket. Shit, like I'd rather sit on a bucket, but it's home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, totally. And I can talk on everything you just said. So like I've witnessed Heather Tar run her camps and it's so funny because I was actually just listening to a podcast, was it In the Circle podcast? And they interviewed her a few weeks ago and they just hired Victoria Hayward and she played at UW and she was just like, Coach Tar is our culture.
Yep.
What she does is our culture. And I think that's what I respected so much about her is that as soon as I met her and stepped foot in her house, like I'm not the field, I'm calling it her house. Like it's the dynasty she built. Right. And I felt it. Like I was just like, she walks around, everyone pays attention to her, not in a selfish way, but in a like, you are our beacon. Like you are so respected and her culture and how she treats her kids and how she talks to all of her kids. And every single one of her players came up to me, introduced themselves, shook my hand, asked me where I'm from. And the hospitality that they gave us and I was just so blown away because that was my first time really being around that top 1%. Right. And you can see why. And, you know, I'm sure Patty has her own thing. You know, I got to play Florida State. Their culture down there is amazing. And what I've caught on, I feel like what I take the most away from those types of coaches is sincerely pouring into your kids and loving them. And I think my first year coaching, I'm coaching JUCO. I'm 2 years older than the girls I'm coaching. Our head coach, she ends up having to get emergency brain surgery. Mind you, again, another JUCO thing. You don't have full-time staff.
Right.
Everyone is part-time something at the school, or they have a full-time job elsewhere and they're coming in to coach. I'm the only coach on campus. I have people throwing parties and I had a girl get arrested and all these things. But I'm like, I'm in charge, hear me roar.
Yeah.
I say run, you run. And it was more of like a power trip thing. And looking back now and how I coach now and then, I think I've definitely learned more. There's time and place, but I definitely for sure tell my kids I love them and mean it. And the biggest compliment that anyone could ever give me as a coach is, wow, your girls play for you. And I'm like, thank you, because I love it, and they know that. Like I've gotten texts the last few weeks of like my girls that are freshmen right now or sophomores, and they're just like, "Thank you so," like out of the blue, and I'm like, God, like that's so great. And I know that that probably wouldn't happen if I didn't tell them when things were hard, not when we won, when things were hard, and I was like, "Hey, I love you. I love you," and that's it. And I don't care what happens after this game. Like you go out and you pour yourself into this, like, and I see you for who you are. That's it. And when you need me, I'm here.
And that has nothing to do with, like, to back on the, like, Heather Tar part, like,
Yeah.
and good customs and courtesies and treating people as people has zero to do with money, right?
Zero.
With money, and zero to do with the fact that, I mean, you coached for a very well and established program at the travel level, right? Like, no, that has zero to do with anything, right? Like teaching people to be good humans has zero to do with money, and everything to do with the fact that whoever your mentor is, they know that your intent is right. The AD that I coach under right now, he always says, you know, like, I let you guys do what I pretty much let you guys do everything you need to do in order to be successful. He's like, there's one thing I ask you, and the one thing I ask is if the girls know or if the guys know that you're doing thing for the betterment of them, I'm never gonna, right?
Yeah.
So when you advocate, you know, you advocate for them and you teach them hard lessons, so long as they understand the why, I don't care, right? Which I think is an interesting point. I've talked to some other people about this as well, because I mean, my girlfriend has kids. Like I've never mommed before, right? I don't know what.
Time out. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Congrats.
So like I've never been a parent figure before, right? The closest thing I've ever had to kids is athletes, and has that like somewhat prepared me? Sure, right? But it's funny because I think very much like you have. When I'm coaching, I have a very sarcastic personality.
For sure. Yeah.
But some people take well to it, some don't, right? I read the room. I know who I can do that to. And it's interesting because with my girlfriend's son, I can very much do that. Like he challenges me. His daughter, that's not so much the case, but I also understand her as a female, right? Where I'm going with this is when I say, "Hey, can you do," mostly with the son, "Can you do something?" And he was like, "Why?" You know, like, and there's, well, because I said so, right? And I think it was Colleen Hacker. I don't know if you've ever followed her, but she's fantastic. Mental performance coach for a couple Olympic teams. She head of a program, an academic program. I think the CASE program at Pacific Lutheran University.
Yep.
I watched her speak, and she's been on a couple podcasts with Julie Foudy, and
Julie.
Yeah, and she talks a lot about like the importance of, like, I think it was her, and if I'm misspeaking, well, but that kids like need to know why, like that whole generation, because I said so, is out the window, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, it's, and that's something like I've had to learn over time too, is like I said, like year one of coaching versus, I don't know, year 7. Yeah, that changed so much, and I think Patty Gasso said this too. I think after they won their championship, she goes, "Some of my former players are calling me soft, but I'm just listening more. I'm listening more." And I think that is such a generational thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we can get into like, you know, I've helped some of my players come out.
Yeah.
And that, again, nothing to do with softball. I didn't come out till I was 24. And now, like, you're seeing this generation, and, like, we're kind of segueing, but, like, they're coming out when they're
young
too.
Not wrong, not wrong.
Yeah, but yeah, I just think that I don't think my philosophy's ever changed. Cause like I'm tough love. Like I think we're similar. Like I'm sarcastic. I'll tell you if you suck. But it's
Mhm.
gonna be like, but where are you? Where are we? Like, let's touch base. How was your day? You had a bad day? Okay, let's talk through that. Um, and I think like just building that trust because, at the end of the day, they look to you and I always say this too, like I always want to be a coach that I needed.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm still evolving in that. Like I feel like I've gotten so much better with that, like especially like just off the field stuff, like school stuff, coming out, like handling like how they can handle relationships, having them understand that when they go to college, they're not going to talk to 90% of the people that they talk to in high school. Like,
Yeah.
It just kind of stuff like that. And the hardships, like some of them are freshmen. They're like, Coach, I don't know if this is a fit for me. And I'm like, you got to give it a year.
Mhm.
Don't transfer. Like, if you have, okay, you give me examples of why you should transfer, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But if it's just like, I'm not playing, I'm not this, that,
Something you said sparked something, a video that university did when I was there. They interviewed Heather Bruder, and a lot of people don't know the Bruder sisters, but they played at Alma. I think she'll kill me if I'm wrong about that, but I think they played at Alma. Standout players. I think if I'm not mistaken, they played internationally for a bit. Her sister coached at Morehead State, Lamar.
mm-hmm.
Heather coached at Linwood. I think it's small D2 up in Michigan. Can't remember. Anyways, she had been at Bluffton for the bane existence of time, like a long time. As an educator, as then later a leader, sat at on the women's chair, etc. And I went to Bluffton for Heather Bruder, hands down. Like, and anybody that knows anything about Bluffton is the population was 3,000. We had a McDonald's, a Taco Bell, and then like some one-off, little restaurants. And that was pretty much it, right? Everything outside of Bluffton was, you could go to the mall, you went to the Findlay Mall, but the Findlay Mall was kind of like the old version of like the Dubuque Mall. There's not a ton there. Right? Yeah. So my point in saying
Maurice's,
yes,
Yonkers.
Yes. Holes. But my point in saying this is, and I think that it's true, Heather Bruder was probably Heather Bruder it was harder playing for her than it was to go to basic training. I fully believe that Heather prepared me for everything that I went through military-wise. But I will tell you, and I agree 100%, you can talk to any of the kids that played for. They did an interview about her, and they were saying, like essentially, what do your kids think about you, or what do you think your kids? She's like, well, I love them. I love them like my own. Like I love them like my kids. And at the time, she didn't have kids. But I love them like my kids, and there isn't anything that I wouldn't do for them. I have an open door policy, and my kids know that they can call me in the middle of the night. They can come to my office at any time, as long as like they give academics and softball and the relationships that they have. They're all like perfectly fine, right? Like,
yeah,
we're going to be in a good place. And it's funny. I saw that interview come out 2 weeks after I showed up on campus, and I'm like, this is kind of the mantra I'm getting, right? And then, I brought my car down there, and there was something wrong with my car. I didn't know anyone, right? So I said, Coach, hey, do you know of anyone that could help me with my car? And she's like, well, what's wrong with it? She's like, Ashley, I grew up on a farm. Like, I know how to do everything, right? What's wrong with it? And I was like, I don't. And she's like, all right, well, like, let's take it for a spin. She does whatever she does, right? And she's like, all right, I know what's wrong. Like, let's take it to my house. I got a couple tools, whatever. Me and a couple teammates went up to her house. She fixed my car. But she's like, but we're going to have to stop at Walmart first. And this is so funny because I tell those kids this as well, right? And now I've never searched for a close parking spot ever again. And so I'm driving in the Walmart parking lot, and I'm searching. She goes, and she's in the front seat. She looks at me and she goes, tell me that you are not looking for a close parking spot right now. And I'm like, I'm not looking for a close parking spot.
Yeah.
Like, and she's like, yes, you are. Go all the way to the back. So we went all the way to the back and we parked in that. She goes, don't you ever be lazy and look for a close parking spot. Like, there's no time in the world. She's like, if you have time in the world to look for a close parking spot, you are not busy enough, you know? But
that's awesome.
Right? Like, to your point, like, you will do anything for your kids. The people I went to, and she, you know, she showed me that. She didn't owe me that, but she showed me, you know?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I think it's fantastic for kids to have that.
Yeah. And like, I truly mean it. And I think that, like, I think that comes out in my coaching. Like, I had a player, she was playing in Montana and now she's at Indiana State, but she called me one night. It's 8:30.
Yeah.
And my heart, like, falls out of my, like, I'm like, oh my God, like, do I need to go pick, like, I'm like, why is Lucy calling you right now? Like, I'm concerned. I'm like, hello, are you okay? She's like, hey, we just had our first, like, scrimmage or fall game or something like that. I just want to let you know I went 4 for 5. And I was the only freshman that played. And I was like, that's great. But I thought you were on the side of the road in Montana and I was going to have to come pick you up because no one's answering. Like, so it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's something that I'll never get tired of. And, you know, I've stepped away a little bit, but I think that I appreciate the game and coaching so much more now that I'm not, like, in it right now.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, coaching travel ball and you know, kind of travel ball, and we can talk about that quite a bit, but there's two sides of it, right? Like, I had both. I had the coaching side and the operation side. Operation side sucks. The reason why it sucks is it's tedious. You're entering the rosters. You're looking up birth certificates. You're getting hotels. You're just stuff that's stupid, and it takes up your whole day. It's terrible, especially when you have, I don't know, 10 to 12 teams.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well, this team, they're playing Colorado, but this team, they're just going down the road to Beloit. And so, like, just the logistics. And again, I'm not an organized person. I know that. I wish I was, but I'm not. And but it works for me. I figure it out. And then there's the coaching side, which is like, it makes up for all this shit that you have to do. And I think the most one with my degrees, I've used the most I've ever had with my 2 degrees doing travel ball and the business side and the sport management side. And I think the coaching portion, because I've coached 14, 16s, 18s, I think the most transformative I've been as a coach has been through travel ball. And it definitely, it's been probably the most rewarding because you kind of think back to, like, our experience. Like, I didn't have a recruiter. I didn't go to these big, like, travel ball was not PGF. It was ASA. I went to hometown in Burlington, probably traveled to Cedar Rapids. That was, like, the biggest tournament, or Des Moines, and that was it. And it cost $300, and that was with your uniform. And whereas now it's like, oh my God, like, what parents spend. That's something else I want kids to understand. What your parents spend for you to be seen, and if you're giving it half-ass, like, oh,
well, and yeah, I agree. I think there's two sides of that. Does the parent want it more than the kid, and that's why they're you know, or is it, and I'm going to say, is it camaraderie, and the parent has bought in because the camaraderie is good for the kid and they being mentored by good people. You know what I mean?
Right. And I get that. And like, that's the thing. And I think that's probably too, like, that's why there's tiers, right? There's C-level teams, there's B-level organizations, there's A-level organizations, and there's like Mega A, which is like your Beverly Bandits, all those West Coast teams and stuff like that. Um, and I think that, I don't know, it's travel ball is its own beast. Like, it's almost become way more controversial than recruiting and going to college. And, you know, you got kids that are announcing where they're playing travel ball. And it's kind of like, that's great. The sport is growing. Amazing. I love that. It's competitive. But also in the same sense, it's just like, we're getting away from why we're doing things and what this success is supposed to set you up for. Like, I remember when I was going to college, like on my college visits, and my dad's like, Andrea, this is not a 4-year plan. This is a 40-year plan. And you're getting your degree, and you're meeting people, and you're networking, and you're whatever. Like, the softball's the plus.
Yeah.
And yeah, I it's crazy because, like, you look back, and I remember doing a project in college about travel ball and why it's bad for the sport. And fast forward 5 years, and I'm essentially helping run an organization. And, you know, but that's the thing, is that if the culture of the organization's there, it's gonna thrive, right? You're gonna grow. And like, I've been able to network so more than I did when I was at Syracuse.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've met great coaches, I've gone cool places, and the girls are being seen, and they're getting recruited, and I want them to be seen, and I want them to have that experience that I didn't have, those opportunities that I did not have. I was not playing in Colorado. Were you playing in Colorado?
I played once in Colorado.
Okay, good for you. That never happened for me. Like, that's insane. Like, that to me, like, blew my, like, what? Like, I didn't even know travel ball teams. Like, even when I came to work travel ball, I'm like, who are Beverly Bandits?
Well, here's the thing. I think the difference is, though, too, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you play in Iowa and you play majority of your summer in a high school season.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, too.
That's a whole different dynamic. That's why go to Colorado, because Colorado's not hosting tournaments in the fall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right.
Right? Like all those, you know, all those college exposure tournaments within the Quad Cities. However, I think that plays a significant role in, like, that's why kids are like, you know, now maybe some kids in Iowa are bowing out. I don't know this to be true, but they're bowing out of high school because it's more competitive and they're more marketable playing on teams like the
Iowa Premier
over in places like Southern California, Oklahoma City, you know, Colorado, if you will. But I think, you know, it's funny you said kids are announcing where they're playing travel ball. When I was growing up, if you team hopped, it was like round, like looked at you.
I know, and now, like, and I'm not saying that I've done that. Like, I'm not saying I haven't slid into a DM. Sounds terrible. I'm not even going to say that. I'm not going to say that I haven't reached out to a kid that I know is unhappy and it might benefit me. And again, I go back to, I'm part of the problem. Like, you get so sucked into it.
I don't think that you're part of the problem. I just had this conversation with an athlete, is the way that now that society has structured competitive, I'm saying competitive, and I'm using it like in certain aspects, competitive is what people are finding, because at the developmental level, there's no recreation sports anymore, right? Travel is not elite as it was when we were growing up, right? You played like where there was no ifs, ands, buts about whether or not you could throw a ball, catch ball, field ball, hit ball, right?
Watered down.
Right. So what I'm saying is like now what I had just gotten done talking to an athlete about was this program that you're on might be really best for you from when you're 12 to 14. And and you bust out of what the program can give you, and that's not
Yeah.
good, right?
No, it's not. And that's I totally agree. Like, and there's times too where by the time that they get to something better, it's too late. They're behind.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden they're a 2025, right? And they're like, "Why am I not getting recruited?" I'm like, "Because you should have came here last year. You're behind."
Yep. That or like, and you can look at that from like the other perspective too, is like this common preconceived notion that like coaches are just going to show up. I say college coaches are just going to show up to your game and then be like, Andie, I want to play. But
Yeah.
I was just my boss, who used to be he's dabbled in, like a ton of advisory for college athletes, right? And he made me look, and I was like, this is actually a really great, phenomenal point. And I've said this to I have too, is he's like, for instance, I show up to your game and I watch you play. Let's say, for instance, you get walked, you get hit by a pitch, and then you finally get a swing, right? Oh, and then you played outfield, and your pitcher that was throwing threw 13 Ks, you never got to touch the ball. Now I've just spent, as a college coach, an hour and a half at a game I didn't even get to see you play, right? Now, why should my interest level, if you've done nothing else besides email me a couple videos, why should my interest level you? He's like, how do we fix that? Interest level should stay with me because I was more proactive than you, and I decided that 6 months prior to my summer season of, let's say, for instance, my junior year going into senior year, I've now, let's say we're behind the park curve, I've now emailed you at least once a month new footage of me for the 6 months. Now you've seen more footage of me in 6 months than you've seen in one whole game. So now, like, and the cool thing is like Game Changer and all those, you can see games online. Like, I got athletes that have YouTube, like, just, you can go back, like, you can just skip to Twitter, but like, hey, come watch me play. I want to know why I should come watch you play. I want to know some good 1 minute videos as to why I should watch you play.
Yeah, and kids like don't understand too. Like, it's a full-time job trying to get recruited. It is stressful. It's not fun. No one has fun doing it. If you do, good for you. Like, that's great. I love that for you. But and again, you can go back to social media. People see the success story, right? They see they're being committed, and then you got the girls that are just like, "Why am I not getting recruited?" I'm like, you see the result. You don't see the process. And that's something too that, like, this generation, they're so results driven, right? I'm on my phone, I get results, right? I can buy something at my door. Oh, I like this. Oh, I got like my girls' social medias. I purposely have boundaries, right? I have my coaching Instagram, and then when they turn 18 and they're in college, they can follow my personal. Absolutely, sure. And I go on there and I'm just looking, and they have like hundreds of likes. Hundreds. Like, you don't even know 20 people. Like, and but that gratification for them, and that's how they perform, right? Oh, like, I'm not being seen, or I had a bad day, and da 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 da. And I'm like, well, you haven't been in the cage all week. Said the 4 hours a week I have you.
So I gotta ask
you,
you,
what's gonna happen
for social media? I gotta ask your opinion.
Oh boy.
So athletes that retweet their peers' stuff, as a college coach, as a former college coach, you tag me in a video, right? And you say, hey, Andie, watch my video. Watch my badass hitting video. Then you're going and searching for more, and all you can see is retweets of them celebrating their teammates. Minute later, you find another video of them. What do you think about tweets of their teammates?
So you're saying, like, they retweeted their teammates' video on their timeline? I don't know. I mean,
the reason I'm asking, let me provide you context. The reason I'm asking, I think it's great to be a good teammate. I think it's great to celebrate your teammates. But that would be like me working in the job that I work in now, building a profile for a player and taking your video, Andie's video, and putting it on somebody else's player, right? They'll be like, why is that there, right? The reason I say that is because for me, like, especially during season, if I'm behind the power curve, I want to open my phone and be like, okay, Andie sent me this video. Okay, wow, I can see 4 videos back to back that maybe she didn't tag me in, right? Because maybe the athlete is tagging. Like, wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. But I don't want to have to, like, if I'm looking at 100 kids and people are constantly,
you want your stuff,
right? Like, I want Andie's content to be Andie's content. Find that you like it, or if you're retweeting like your schedule, or you're retweeting something right?
It's about you, like, right. and I think you bring up a good point. Like, if I create a Twitter, if I create a page, me to get recruited, it should just be for you, right? Sure, like, yeah, it's great. I agree. Like, oh, you wanna, but then I can go, like, are you just trying to be a good friend? Like, what if the content's up?
Right. That's like, what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like what? Oh, go off, girl. You got your hit was an error. Like, well, and that's what you posted.
That's the cold hard truth. Yeah, that's the cold hard truth.
Yeah.
To me, like,
because you were, I think that if you're trying to market yourself, like, keep it to yourself. But if you have another one, like, yeah, fine, retweet it. But, like, yeah, you kind of lose credibility. I feel like it's no different than me. Like, I remember, she, was getting hitting lessons. She took a video, posted it, and her coach that was throwing her front toss, it was lollipops. Like, it was not realistic at all. And I'm like, okay, like, is this for slow pitch? Like, I'm confused. Like, are we working? Like, is this supposed to be change up? And I favorited it, watched it, saw it, and I remember my boss looked at me. He's like, "You liked that tweet of her, and it's shitty content." And I was like, "Well, I can't unlike it now." Like, you know what I mean? Like, she tagged me in it. She's like, "Hey, like, because I was like, hey, if you, do something, tag me in it. People need to see it, whatever. And also, I like to know that you're doing something." I mean, it worked out for her. She's playing Division I now, so it's not like it didn't make her break her. But, it's instances like that. It's like, and now I'm very cautious of what I like and what I don't like, and what I retweet and what I don't retweet, because, again, it's like credibility. It comes back on you, right? You too. Like, when you're representing these athletes, and I can say that, like, when you're representing these athletes and you're just like, hey, I'm credible source. I'm going to have a good pool of kids for this, whatever you need, blah, blah, blah. And, I mean, what kids don't understand is that when you do that, I mean, even if you work for, who you work for, or me as a travel ball coach, and I'm representing them, and I'm talking to coaches, and I'm shaking hands. I had a Division I school talk to me about a player. And this player has a hard family life. She steals. I know for a fact. Like, all these bad things. But however, she is really good. She is really good. She is very athletically gifted. She doesn't do anything extra. She's not a culture kid, whatever. And they asked me about her, and I was like, you don't want her. Because she doesn't go to class. She, she's respectful,
right?
Which is fine. She has huge upside, very impactful. But of all the things that that you want someone in your program for 4 years, I told him, I was like, and someone told me, like, dude, that's cold of you. I'm like, it comes back on me. Like, how dare I? How dare I send again?
when you can call up that coach.
And that's happened to us before. That's happened to us before. We've had a girl go somewhere and the head coach called us and they're like, "What did you give me?"
Mm-hmm.
She is a problem. She's drama. She's this. Now, mind you, I wasn't a part of that transaction, but that's another thing that kids don't understand too, is that coaches see things, players see things, but coaches see you, right? Like, you could have rose-colored glasses on for your kid. My kid's this thing, but it doesn't matter what you see. It matters what we see, what we report, and what they're recruiting for.
Right.
And that's what I've learned too, is, and especially in travel ball, is like there's some skewed reality, and there's some coaches too that I've coached against or affiliated with, and they're like, "She's good." I'm like,
we're watching the same player.
Yeah, I'm like,
yeah.
She's a true shortstop. I'm like, saying like I'm end all be all, but I'm like, I know the kind of talent that you've been around, and maybe for a lower level organization, she might be a shortstop. But you're telling me you want me to bring this girl to a PGF showcase in front of the top Midwest schools, and you're saying she's starting shortstop? Like, and those are those tough conversations that we have to have too as coaches. Is like, you see this, like you might see it this way, but like I'm telling you right now, I'm also going to put you in a position for success.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you might have grown up, like, for example, I grew up a shortstop. That's all I knew.
Mm-hmm.
I go to college, I play outfield. Whatever. And then I was like, I'm better at outfield than I was at shortstop. And like, that's the thing, is like, and I respect travel ball teams that move players to positions every inning. I respect that.
I do. So I do and I don't.
Yeah.
I do and I don't. I say that I respect it to a capacity, which the last travel program I coached, pool play, we put people in their primary and secondary positions, right?
Sure.
So long as you had like free substitutions, right?
Yeah, right. No, for sure, yeah.
We carried normally a roster of like 18, right? I agree with it in pool play.
Oh my God.
However, where it does kind of mess up the construct is pool play obviously sets you up for bracket play. So if I'm coming out in the bottom of the bracket because I wasn't playing my best 9 in a competitive pool, I'm just doing myself a disservice to win the tournament anyways. Now, does it matter the tournament? Ultimately, no. Like,
no, you're right.
But like, I agree with it to a capacity. I feel like I just told an athlete, I disagree with people saying that they're utility players. To me, that's not. I think a college coach can decide that for you, but you yourself as a utility player is doing a disservice, because you and I both know that colleges are recruiting specific positions.
Yep. Oh, I just graduated 5 of these. I need 2 of these. Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm telling you the difference between outfield positions and from middle infield positions. Why? Because your shortstop's probably going to have a stronger arm than your second base. And center fielder probably has better read on the ball than your right and left fielder. However, your right fielder is phenomenal down the line. You can guarantee her that she's going to be able to dominate, right? Like,
yeah.
And she has a quicker throw, so she can, field those outfield ground balls to first base. Like, those are all things that I'm thinking about. So when I see kids posting on Twitter that they're utility athletes, I'm wondering if you don't have a specialty, right? Like,
right. And what are you good at? Or it's like, are you good at something, or the team you're on
not maximizing your capabilities?
Mm-hmm. And you bring up a good point, and I should say that the teams that I have played against, now I have coached based on but the teams that I have played against, I should say, are like the EC Bullets that have 9 girls that are all going D1, and they carousel around the whole field.
Yep.
So I should say, but again, PC bullets. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it depends. But doing that, I'm like, smart for them. Like, that's good for them that they do that. Like, they were like, oh, we just put our outfielder at third. We'll see what she can do. And I was like, and then literally the next play, she got a piss rod down the line, backhanded it, and threw her out. And I was like, okay, cool. Good for you. She's good. And I think she was, honestly, I think she was a Florida State commit. And I was like, good for you, girlfriend.
It's about point. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And honestly, it was only a 5-0 game. So I wasn't mad about it.
Yeah.
And my girls are like, those teams that like put all the commits on the side of their helmet. And so like we're warming up, they see their helmets on, like, gosh. And I was like, okay. Like
they're Sally, they're not anybody.
Yeah, no, and yeah, we competed with them. Honestly, I think they were probably surprised, but what else was I gonna say about travel ball? I don't remember.
So good.
But it's its own beast. It's its own, and then now, like, oh my god, like we talk about NIL.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's like NIL. I feel like NIL is like Andie and Ashley part 2.
You're right. Should be postponed.
We should do NIL part 2, or since we talked about so many great things before we actually started recording of all these great ideas, like maybe that's Andie and Ashley's coffee talk. I gotta follow. I follow some NIL lawyers on Twitter, and there's some serious dirt into that. Like, that's a rabbit hole for sure.
And the fact that, like, I think there should be a cap.
Absolutely.
And you look at, like, you feel so bad for all these mid-majors because now, isn't it? You can have as many officials as you want now, right? Official visits.
That's what I've heard. There's some, depends on division. There's some complexities there, but I've heard that. Yes.
Yeah. Whereas before it was like you were only allowed 7 officials.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think other people don't realize when you have an official visit, they pay for your flight, they pay for your hotel, they pay for all your meals. They probably give you some merch. You do a photo shoot. Like, yeah, it's hey, hello. And those schools that can't afford that, and now they're going to compete with, who we can talk basketball, softball, whatever. I mean, granted, we can say the few exceptions are like the Caitlin Clarks and the Angel Reese and, all those, but like football, that's where the money's going, right?
It is.
But it was already like that to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. I think just making it more complex. You know what I mean?
Like, and for example, like when I was at Syracuse, 94% of it and then pocketed the last percent. And she used it for rent, for shoes, or whatever. And so you take that, and that's just softball. Now you think of like what they were doing before NIL, and they're still, buying cars. Like, what was it? Ohio State, like the tattoos. What's his name? The running back for USC, Reggie. When he got his Heisman taken away.
Reggie Bush,
yeah, same thing. Like, he would, if that were happened today, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy. But like, you can also go, like, I feel like NIL and like the growth of the sport goes hand in hand. My dog is barking. It goes hand in hand. Like, it's so great. Like, I was, one of my former players, she's a pitcher, and they're playing Houston, and she got lit up. She was the sacrificial lamb. Like, 3 home runs at over a grand slam. Like, it was brutal. She came in, they were down by 1. By the time she got out, they were down like 12-2. Like, it was not good. And And she did it with a smile on her face, and I was watching it on ESPN. And she goes to Indiana State. She's a mid-major school, right? And I texted her, and I was like, "Listen," I was like, "You're doing great." And she's a junior. She's a sophomore, junior. She graduated early, so she's technically a junior. And I just like I was like, I need to put this into perspective for you. I just watched you and another girl. They played together. Two girls that I coached together, and two other girls that I've coached in the past 2 years on TV. I didn't stream it through soandso.com, through the university's website. I watched you on ESPN. And I remember like when we it was hard to watch the Women's College World Series when we were in high school.
Yeah, you were lucky if you got it on the local channel.
Yeah, you were so lucky. And I just said, I was like, you don't see it now, but you are a part of such a huge pivotal moment in women's sports and in softball in general. Like, it's insane. Like, even like right now, the Clearwater Classic that's going on. Like, how you can access it, and it's on ESPN and all these things, and it's just like that wasn't
quarter by
yeah, exactly, and it's just like that was not a thing 10 years ago.
No,
and then you go back to NIL, and so I think about like all the players I grew up watching. So like, okay, obviously Lauren Chamberlain, Sarah Romero, who else? Madison Shipman, Alex Hugo, Kehlani Ricketts,
Monica Abbott.
But yeah, but that was like even way before.
I mean, that was more my time, but like even look back. Look at Natasha Watley, Lisa Fernandez, Jenny Finch, Monica Abbott, like all these like pioneer women that could have crushed
it. And like even now too, like you see Sierra Romero like with her New Balance line, and you know Lauren Chamberlain being the commissioner, and now she's like her own sports agent. Like those. And I love like Sis Bates and all those girls like now, but like to me, and it could be different for you. To me, those girls that I just named off, like they were queens.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were amazing, and I would get so frustrated with my girls. I'd be like, "Do we not watch college softball? Like, who are you emulating your game after? Like, do you guys not know who Sierra Romero is? Like my best friend played pro."
Yeah,
and she's striking out Sierra Romero, and I thought that was the coolest fucking shit. I'm like, dude, you just struck out Lauren Chamberlain, and she's the home run queen. Like, are you fucking kidding me? And she's 5'6", went to Western Kentucky, like playing pros on Monica Abbott's team.
Yeah,
and my girls like 2 years ago, they're like, we've heard of Sis Bates, and I'm like,
dude, it's wild. It's wild.
But now, like, it's so accessible. There's no. When I coached 14s my first year of travel ball, if we had to cancel practice, I would send them a YouTube video of a game from the past few years, and I would say, "You have to write me a 1-page paper of what you learned during this game."
I just did that with my high school.
Well, yeah, and guess what? I had some kids. I look back and I'm like, I probably did this shit once or twice. They just copied and pasted the play-by-play. This from the stat sheet, and then put it in paper. And I remember taking I had a red pen that came to practice. I go, okay, I'm teacher Andrea today.
Yeah.
I was like, give me your papers. I had a red pen, and whenever I'd see that, I put a huge red X through it, and I would write, "What did you learn?" And then I gave it back to them. I said, "Go redo it."
Dude, that is awesome. We have to do coffee talk. We get so much good hashing in.
Oh, I've already had 2 cups. I haven't even eaten yet today. I'm supposed to be working.
I should let you do that anyways. It's been awesome. We've hit so many things.
Dude. Yeah, we're gonna have to have a part 2. I haven't even talked about my time really. I haven't talked about parents. That could be a segment in itself.
Yeah.
I haven't talked about my wife. Yeah.
It's gonna be part 2.
Oh man. I feel bad for whoever's listening to this. They're gonna be like, dude, do they have ADD? Like, are they okay? Like, no, I'm not okay. I have a lot to say.
We do. We have a lot of experience.
Yeah, I would say so. Not the most, but I feel like we've had some pretty defining moments in our careers. I mean, I got stories, dude. I got JUCO stories. I got coaching from JUCO stories.
For sure. For
Crazy,
sure.
crazy.
Well, thanks, Andie. I appreciate you.
Dude, I appreciate you. I wouldn't be me without you. I hope people know that. Some people are like, "Who's Coach M?" I'm like, "Well, you're gonna find out." So no, I appreciate you, and you know how much our relationship means to me, and I think what you're doing. I think we have very similar values, and what you're doing for kids and helping them get recruited. I can't think of anyone better to invest in. So, dude, I wouldn't lie. I wouldn't say like you suck. Like, you don't suck. Only that one time you yelled at me at practice because I didn't call off a ball from shortstop, even though they caught it. And you said, "You need to call that off." And I was like, "She caught it. What's the problem?" and then I felt bad for talking back to you, and I started hyperventilating.
Yeah, that's good that you had a recollection moment.
Oh yeah, I was. I think I have a whole like bank of like issues.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Andie. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet, Coach.
We'll be in touch.
Gang, gang.
Barcelona